All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Brian Baldinger stopped by with Rich Eisen to talk a little bit about how the Niners beat the Chiefs in Super Bowl 58, and we're going to talk about it coming up next, as well as show you some of that video. And, of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And of course, this video is also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description. Use the promo code Krug, K-R-U-E-G, and they will match you up to your first $100. And this week in Underdog, I'm going Juwan Jennings, higher than 1.5 receptions in Super Bowl 58. Travis Kelce, higher than a half a rushing or receiving touchdown. Patrick Mahomes, higher than 25.5 rushing yards. Brock Purdy, higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns. And George Kittle, higher than 4 receptions. All right, let's hear from Brian Baldinger. Baldy's one of my favorites. I love the way he breaks down football. He does an incredible job. He's been doing it all year on the radio on 95.7 The Game. And he stopped by with Rich Eisen to talk about how are the Niners and Brock Purdy going to wind up beating Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the dynasty known as the Kansas City Chiefs. Take a listen, and we'll react to it coming up next.
Your first blush analysis of Super Bowl 58 and what it will come down to. What do you have for me?
Well, at this point, Rich, like, how can you bet against Patrick Mahomes? Like, how can you, honestly, like, that's the easy answer. But, like, how many times we're going to watch this movie and go, you can't count this guy out. Even in the Super Bowl they lost to Tampa. Like, you couldn't have, I think somebody tracked how many miles he ran, being chased, that day, where the offensive line was just, it was just overmatched. But, like, even still, in some of those throws, like, nobody can survive and make those kind of efforts that he did to try to win that game. And so we know the effort and everything it takes to try to win a game, no matter where they're at in the game, up, down, whatever. Like, it's just hard to think that you could take down Patrick Mahomes and Steve Spagnuolo and Andy Reid at this point.
But give me the way that the Niners then do it. It comes down to what? I mean, can the Niners do to Mahomes what the Ravens defense did? Because if Mahomes has a scoreless half, don't you think the Niners have a great shot with certainly with McCaffrey and a healthy Debo and Ayuk and Kittle and Purdy coming in and saying today's my day, right?
Well, we're gonna put the spotlight on Brock Purdy and see if he bites the apple, Rich, as they like to say, or if he just plays, just loose and carefree and just fearless. Because at the end of the day, I remember, like, when Nick Foles won the Super Bowl with the Eagles here 6 years ago, Rich. Like I said, okay, before that game, he's got to make 5 throws that are just absolute highlight throws. And when you go back and watch that shootout with Brady, he had 10. He had 10 that day where you go, you can't throw it any better. And they needed every one of those 10 to win, including the Philly special. And I feel like that's what Purdy's going to have to do. We're going to have to see at the end of this thing, like, we're going to see 5 throws where you go, I don't care if it was Montana or Young. He's on that stage with the guys that have won here before, and that's the level he's going to have to play at.
And maybe have a catch, too, like you pointed out that Foles had, right? I mean, who knows?
All right, there you go. There's Brian Baldinger talking about how the 49ers and Brock Purdy can beat Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. It is interesting. The Niners are favored. The Niners are the team that is favored in this game. And yet, if you talk to most people, they'll say, wow, well, Kansas City's defense is better. They're playing better. Chris Jones is a dominator. Nick Bolton on that second level, equally a dominator. L'Jarius Sneed is a terrific defensive back. Spagnuolo's a phenomenal coordinator. And they just look at Kansas City and say, well, wait a second. They've got Mahomes. They've got Travis Kelce. They've got Isaiah Pacheco. Mahomes has never lost to the Niners. Kansas City's got the better defense. They're the defending champion. What did they do in the playoffs? They went to Buffalo and beat a really good Bills team that was hot and had won like 5 in a row. Then they went to Baltimore and took down the number 1 seed in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens, and shut down the league's MVP probably, and Lamar Jackson. Kansas City, while the Niners, of course, struggled with Green Bay, who was 28th in the NFL against the run, struggled with the Lions, whose pass defense is not great, and struggled in those 2 games at home. I think there's a lot of people across the league, the public. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to wind up betting Kansas City in this game just for all those reasons right there, right? But it's interesting. Baldy thinks that if the Niners are going to win, that Brock Purdy's going to have to make 5 great throws. And he said Nick Foles made 10 great throws in beating Tom Brady. It's interesting. I would say that there's no question Brock Purdy has to play well. He has to play well in this game. The 49ers probably have to win the turnover battle or be even on the turnover battle. I don't know that the Niners can beat Kansas City if they're -1 on turnover margin or -2 or more on turnover margin. It's probably not going to happen. But I would say there's too much emphasis on things that don't matter or matter less, and not enough emphasis on the things that matter the most. I'll give you my example. The Raiders beat this Kansas City team. Well, how did they do it? How did the Raiders beat Kansas City? They ran the ball for 157 yards. They pressured Mahomes with 5-man fronts, and they doubled Travis Kelce or tilted the coverage to Kelce and played a lot of man against Kansas City. And those factors were enough for the Raiders to get over on the Chiefs. So they ran the ball. And the 49ers have a really good run game. They may have the best runner in the game right now in Christian McCaffrey. And I agree that, if the 49ers are going to have success in this game, they're probably going to have to pressure Mahomes with 5-man fronts. I think that's probably pretty realistic. And if you look at the 49ers in this game, I think the Niners are probably going to have to, go with a 5-man front. Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, Javon Kinlaw, Eric Armstead, and Randy Gregory. And I think the Chiefs always have a harder time running against those fronts. And then, at some point, they're going to have to ask Charvarius Mooney Ward and Diamador Lenore to play bump and run man-to-man coverage on Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce, and count on Ward and Lenore to try to hold up in those one-on-one battles. I think that's probably the way the Niners can win best. So all the talk about Mahomes, and Mahomes is great. Don't get me wrong. Mahomes is terrific. But I think you got to run the ball. You got to run the ball in Kansas City. You got to limit their possessions. You've got to pressure Mahomes. I think you probably got to do it with 5-man fronts. Nick Bosa and Chase Young have to win against Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor, and I think they can. They've got to cause penalties that put the Chiefs behind the sticks. They've got to sack the quarterback. They got to create negative plays. And I think when they get to the red zone, especially, they're going to have to tilt the coverage towards Kelce at the very least, and maybe double him. And that's, to me, as far as what the Niners can do offensively. Then let's flip it over and talk about defensively. I think the Niners have to run the ball and take and dominate the time of possession. But the other real thing, Isaiah Pacheco's had 24 runs in 2 of the last 3 playoff games for Kansas City. He is the guy. They have to stop Isaiah Pacheco. They've got to get, bunch of hits on him. That means that Kinlaw and the interior guys are going to have to stand up to the Chiefs' interior 3. Even if Thuney can't play, Creed Humphrey's outstanding. Nick Allegretti, Trey Smith, they're good. They're good football players. They're really good inside. So the Niners are going to have to stop the run inside, and then they're going to have to prevent, they're going to, the interior guys like Kinlaw are going to have to absorb the chief offensive linemen and keep them from climbing to the second level and picking off Greenlaw and Warner. The Niners' run D is predicated on Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw keeping bodies off their legs, being free to run and hit. Those are two of the best run defenders in the entire league. But if they get picked off because of offensive linemen getting on that second level, because Kinlaw and Armstead can't absorb those bodies up front, they're going to run to the edges and then cut back with Pacheco, who's got 4.3 speed, and nobody's going to be there. So the Niners need to do an incredible job defending Isaiah Pacheco. It all starts with Isaiah Pacheco. We can talk about Mahomes. Mahomes is key, but it's all about Isaiah Pacheco. They don't have two runners. I mean, they've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but he's not near the player that Pacheco is. They have to, the Niners defense has to stop Isaiah Pacheco up the middle, on the edges, on the cutbacks. They've got to stop Isaiah Pacheco. That's got to be goal number 1 and 1A. Stop Isaiah Pacheco. And then I think it really comes down to doubling Kelsey in the red zone. The Chiefs, when they drop back to pass, he's looking for Kelsey 1. He's looking for Rashee Rice 2. And if those guys aren't available, he's looking to run it. He's looking to tuck it away and run it. So the Niners have to understand what they're facing and be ready to defend that in the red zone against Kelsey, in the red zone against Rashee Rice. But the real key in this game is not about Mahomes. It's about Isaiah Pacheco playing really good run defense against Isaiah Pacheco. All right, thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. Thanks to all you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.